This video is going to be kind of a look forward, but utilizing the look back to do so and kind of maybe accurately judge what the Ravens can do in the 2023 NFL Draft, solely based upon what they did last year with a huge amount of fourth round picks, and this year that dynamic is totally flipped. The Ravens have far less picks available, obviously, and we've lost a second round pick with the acquisition of Roquan Smith, which I would have voted for then, and I would vote for now because of the impact that he has on the defense. But looking forward, trying to predict not who we will pick, but the quality, and utilizing the 2022 NFL Draft kind of as a baseline. What did the Ravens do in the 2022 NFL Draft? I think we were all happy on draft night. I mean, then again, we didn't draft a wide receiver, so there was certainly something in the room to talk about that we didn't address. And we certainly think and hope, well, I guess, have some assuredness now from hearing the GM and the front office say that we will address it in the 2023 draft. I wonder if they got a double up at wide receiver. But in any case, what we'll do is we'll look back at the 2022 draft with 1 year's evaluation, which of course is not a complete evaluation for real. You're only evaluating it based upon one season. Like, for example, David Ojabo in round 2 is a fantastic pick at 45, but he wouldn't have been there if he was not injured and didn't have much impact for the Ravens this year, despite, an exciting effort in Week 18 against the Bengals on the road. So let's get started. And let's start this off, obviously, with the Ravens' first pick, which was Kyle Hamilton. Incredible range, versatility. Didn't really get to show that versatility a ton in 2022 because once they settled on his role, it was basically nickel safety or nickel corner, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it slot corner. Essentially, he was playing nickel inside corner to the passing strength, generally to the field. Demonstrated great tackling and physical play there. I thought he got better the deeper into the season we got. Inside run plays and perimeter screens, he was fantastic, particularly in like the Broncos and Panthers games. Me personally, I thought this pick was surprising at 14 at the time. I wasn't as excited about it as other people, I'll be honest with you, even though I knew he was a fantastic player and he was available at 14, which was, unusual. I thought the Ravens had guys that they could look at taking at receiver, but we had been traded up on. We'd been bypassed by a lot of teams. I was never under the impression that the Ravens were taking Jordan Davis last year at 14, even though the Eagles appear to have traded up to get in front of us to do so. The Ravens, to me, this is a really smart pick, looking back on it. All right? It's a really smart pick, so I was wrong in my initial impression because the Ravens knew they had pick 24. So they knew they had another opportunity to grab an impact player on offense. Now, we drafted offensive lineman Tyler Linderbaum. It's tough to say after one season where Kyle Hamilton only played nickel slot corner. For me, it's tough to say that it's an A-plus pick. And I like Kyle Hamilton. I think he had a fantastic year. He didn't have that many interceptions, forced fumbles, even though he had the huge hit on Hayden Hurst to force a fumble, and the great strip against the Patriots when the Patriots, theoretically could have gone down and scored. I think late third quarter, early fourth. I might be wrong there. I would say the pick is an A-minus, simply because of the combination of Hamilton and Linderbaum. We did not address offensive position player, and we had 2 opportunities to do so. So I'm basing that A- for this particular pick off of how he played in season 1, which again, he is more versatile than the film showed. He's more versatile than he was given opportunity, in my opinion, and he'll get more opportunities as his career develops. So I anticipate that there's a high probability that this selection is an A-plus pick as we get through into year 2 and then further down the road in his career. All right, the second pick ended up being pick 25. Originally, it was pick 24 from the Cardinals. And again, the Ravens knew that they had this second pick here, so I think the selection of Hamilton looks even more brilliant, being as they did have a second-round pick coming up. Tyler Linderbaum, like I said, was picked at 25. He's a very balanced offensive lineman after seeing him for one season. Certainly got to get stronger in some situations. Incredible competitor. Amazingly quick. I mean, he reaches 3 techniques. He's great on combo blocks in a zone scheme, in a stretch scheme. You don't reach 3 techniques in the NFL unless they're stunting inside. But Tyler Linderbaum was reaching 3 techniques last year. I'd say I got him on film doing it 6 times. and only 2 of those times was the 3 technique, or did the 3 technique appear to be stunting inside. It's a very rare thing. I think he's a freak on stretch outside zone concepts. I think he wore down some of the. I think we wore down some of the bigger nose tackles that we dealt with in the year. I think of like the Bucks game. Vita Vea looked overwhelming on 2 plays early in the first half, one in the first quarter, and I think one early second quarter, and thereafter in the third quarter, I felt like the Ravens' offensive line ate his lunch, including Tyler Linderbaum. Size isn't a relative strength, obviously, but his tenacity, his intelligence and quickness, in my opinion, more than makes up for it based on what I've seen. Having said that, and I think he's a fantastic player. I'm a big fan. I think he's going to be one of the top centers in the league. I feel quite confident in saying that. The film shows it. I think he's exceptional when they asked him to pull and kick people out. I had some film that I was going to load up for this, but I'm going to have it try to be a little quicker. Having said all that, after 1 year, I have to be honest and give it a B or B plus grade, simply because it's difficult for me to understand how so many NFL teams passed up on Christian Watson. There's a lot of y'all that talk about George Pickens. I think you're missing the boat. Christian Watson's sitting there at 25, our second first-round pick. Opportunity to get 2 freaks, one that catches the football, Watson, and can run it, and one that defends the catching of the football, Kyle Hamilton, I felt like was a unique opportunity. At 6'5", red zone threat. You can talk about George Pickens all you want. He's half as dangerous as Christian Watson, and I think that's shown in year 1. Overall, I would say round 1 is an A- for me after 1 season. Long term, I think it's clearly an A+ draft, and I really, really like the Linderbaum pick. Me personally, I would have wanted someone like a Christian Watson, being as we got traded up on. I thought that was, looking back on it now, I thought that was the original plan, meaning if someone trades up on us and we lose the guy we want at 14, then we could get him at 24, get somebody else at 24 or 25. But Jahan Dotson was gone at that point. Treylon Burks had just been taken. So I understand the hindsight is 2020. Me personally, I agreed the first round A- from last year. Right now, today, A+ long term. I think there's no question. All right, round 2 is the one I think that's maybe even a little more controversial than round 1. By the time we drafted, David Ojabo, look, I can't give a D grade or a C- grade when you get first round talent. When your front office gets first round talent at pick 45, I just can't do it. From a long-term standpoint and a salary structure perspective, you can't pass this guy up. I mean, really, you can't, because you're getting salary structure-wise a guy at 45 who you should have been paying, to be drafted at 20, number 1. Number 2, the long-term standpoint. Now, I understand the first year ended up being a miss. Like most things in the draft, it's really not as simple as my lead in there for draft 2. There was other opportunities for talent that clearly could have contributed more in 2023. And looking back on it now, I'm not a huge George Pickens guy, as you heard earlier in the video, but because he's no savior, but clearly he would have helped a whole lot more than Ojabo at 45 throughout the course of the season with the roster that we had. I'm a fan of the big X receivers. I just am. I was a huge fan of Drake London last year, Christian Watson being 6'5", George Pickens being 6'4". Whoever they would have drafted, if it was a big X that was available. Alec Pierce was even another guy that I thought was worthy. Maybe not at 45 though. I'm fine if you focus on the David Ojabo pick and use it as evidence or indication that the Ravens front office can't be trusted. I don't go that far. I think that the combination of Linderbaum and Hamilton being picked in round 1, this is one that the Ravens front office really put their name on. And Ojabo can play. I think he's shown that in a limited film that we got. Having said that, for me personally, and again, he did show the big play opportunity against the Bengals, and even going back to his college film. You look at, he reminds me, this is so weird to say, he reminds me of like Ivan Drago. What he hits, he destroys, because he forces so many fumbles. Going back to his time at Michigan, or at least his final season at Michigan, I should say, when he had a lot of impact, there's a lot of run plays and pass plays where he forces fumbles. It's just what he does, which is, I think, kind of amazing. Personally, I think there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with this. For grading it after 1 year, for me, it's a C or C+, somewhere around in there. with the understanding that, look, David Ojabo this year in his second year, he's probably going to give us 8 or 10 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and some type of play that leads to like a defensive touchdown or a strip sack that is picked up and brought back to like inside the 5. I think there's no question he has that type of ability. And a year from now, this grade could be an A plus because of the talent that we got. So I'm understanding. I'm aware of the fact that people are going to disagree with me in terms of being selfish. Let's do it this way: being selfish for the 2022 team that lost in the wild card round at the Bengals without Lamar in a game where really the Ravens, I thought, outplayed the Bengals for large stretches of the game. A guy like a George Pickens, Christian Watson wasn't available at 45. He had been selected by then. Maybe even Alec Pierce could have had a little bit more impact than some of the guys we had out there at receiver. I think Ojabo has tremendous potential. I'm a huge fan. Can't wait to see film of him for next year and how he can change games on one play. But in my opinion, this was the pick that for me was a little bit more of I was a little bit more disappointed, I guess I should say, even though you're getting first round talent there, a guy who, is a great talent. All right, round three is also another one that is difficult to really put a grade on because of the number of snaps that Travis Jones did not play. Somewhat similar to Ojabo, but for a different reason. Ojabo didn't play because of injury. He was unavailable to play, right? Jones didn't play because, well, let me ask you, why didn't Travis Jones play more consistently? Is it because he didn't demonstrate talent in games? Certainly not. I thought he played well when we got him on the field. Why didn't he play as much? Because we had other good players in front of him. Keeping in mind that Michael Pierce got injured early in the season and wasn't even available after week 2? Something like that? Week 3, maybe? When we drafted Travis Jones, we had a lot of these guys on the roster and available. I'll start from the bottom. Broderick Washington, Justin Madubuike, Calais Campbell, and then obviously we signed Michael Pierce. It's difficult to put a grade on this one because I do suspect that if Travis Jones played more, if he got more snaps, more consistent snaps every week, I think you'd have more game-changing plays from him. I do. I think he's that talented. I have some friends who every year say, "Hey," and they're very negative. The Ravens and the Ravens media pumps up these guys drafted in the 3rd round as if they were first-round talent. Well, why are they continuing to fall for us? Well, people do fall at times. George Pickens is a guy that talent-wise fell, right? Christian Watson, if you did a redraft, will be drafted in the top 15, 18 guys and went like 35 or 37. Travis Jones, hard for me to say he's a bad pick. I'm not a huge fan of us going 4 picks in a row and not getting a receiver, particularly with what we did in round 4, which was, take 2 tight ends. The Ravens are going to take best player available generally. I guess what I'm saying is this is an easy one to second guess if we want to. If you want to, you can. He's a very good player. I think he's going to be a very good player for a long time. Travis Jones probably starts for 6, 8, maybe 10 teams across the NFL immediately last season, based on the film that I saw. When I say start, I mean plays 30, 33 snaps a game, in some type of rotation, but being higher in the ranking than he was when we had Campbell, Pierce, Madubuike, and even Broderick Washington, who's trusted at this point at the end of 2023. But I think even to a certain extent, the Ravens trusted him more than Travis Jones prior to last year. I was a little disappointed in this one, maybe slightly less so than the round 2 pick. You can let me know if you didn't like my grade for round 2. You probably really won't like my one for round 3. Me personally, I try to look at round 2 and 3 collectively together, and we just didn't get much from them through 1 year. I'm not someone who judges 23, 24-year-old guys harshly and says there's a finished product. Travis Jones could be an all-pro 3, 4, 5 years from now with more consistent time. Calais Campbell's coming back. We got Madubuike. Presumably Michael Pierce is coming back. I don't know what his contract situation looks like if the Ravens, get rid of him. I don't advocate that they should. I think he's a hell of a football player. My point is, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, people listen to this video, they might say, man, you were dumb. Travis Jones is an absolute baller. Yeah, I recognize that he has those kind of skills, but looking at round 2 and 3 together, collectively, We got a little less out of those guys than we did from some of the round 4 guys together. And even those guys were a little bit inconsistent. After 3 or 4 years, rounds 2 and 3 could be absolute grand slams for this football team. David Ojabo and Travis Jones in round 2 and 3 could be absolute grand slam A-plus grades. I recognize that. I gave round 2 a C or C plus with the recognition that it could be it probably could be an A-plus inside of 2 or 3 years. Even 1 year from now, after 2 years of Ojabo being in the league, it could be A-plus. Round three, I would give about the same grade, C plus or B minus. If Jones played more consistent snaps last year as a rookie, it'd be easy to give this a B, B plus, solid B, B plus, because he's so talented. But having said all that, because we knew his snaps would be limited, because we knew we had depth there, I feel like at some point you got to go away from the BPA mentality, best player available, and look at what your team needs. And so if you're one of those people who's somewhat critical of the Ravens drafting, you are probably less confident this year because of that mentality being utilized in picks round 1, round 2, round 3, our first 4 picks last year in 2022. It's a little bit why I struggle. This next one's going to be fun. At least I think so. Look, I think on draft night, this was a grand slam. The talent that we got, JAD, who knew that he would continue to struggle with injuries. Apparently, I found some documentation in my research for this video that JAD had run a 4.39 at some point leading up to the draft last year. I'm not doubting that. I'm just saying that surprised me because I did not see that type of speed or acceleration when he got on the field for the Ravens. Lends some credence to the fact that he was more injured than maybe we thought, and maybe that's why he was shut down. Falele struggled in the game that he first got a lot of reps in, the Patriots game in Week 3. He struggled early, and then I thought he settled down, played quite well in the second half. I believe there was another game where Falele came in last year and was I think it was the game when Stanley got hurt. I don't remember who that was against, to be honest with you, at this point. And he came in and looked really poor on the first 2 possessions. It looked to me like Falele's a guy who, if he's getting work all week to start, then he'll be able to play better. He'll be able to give you a better production. But if he's just kind of thrown in there, he was not ready in that game that I'm referencing. I don't even know exactly what game I was talking about, to be honest with you. Kolar didn't have much impact, even though he's a talented kid. We definitely saw that against the Bengals. Isaiah Likely would be the guy here that I would say you can clearly look at, and he has round 1, 2, 3 talent. Maybe not round 1, but definite talent to have been selected in round 2 and round 3, and the Ravens got him in round 4. For me, based on just one season, Isaiah Likely is the guy that the Ravens picked up later and were very fortunate to get. I mean, let's be honest, the Ravens drafted Charlie Kolar before they drafted Isaiah Likely. Likely was still on the board at 128 when we picked Kolar, and then we picked up Hunter next, Stout, to get Likely. Now, maybe the Ravens maybe they've got some kind of genius projections where they can predict what teams are going to select, but I'm not sure that, that stuff is even available. It's probably available, but it certainly is, I wouldn't say reliable. Teams select people out of the blue at times. The Ravens taking a punter at 130 was surprising across the league. I'm glad we did. I thought Stout had a great season, in my opinion. Pepe Williams, inconsistent opportunities in his rookie year. I thought at the Bengals game in Week 5, I thought Pepe Williams was very important to that success. But his versatility to play actual slot corner, meaning playing man on people, and then rotate back to safety, I am very intrigued by Pepe Williams' potential. Not to gloss over JAD at all. I just felt like it's possible we didn't get an accurate eval of him in his rookie year because it appears as if he may have been injured. Falele, with the 2 opportunities that I'm referencing, I think there was a third opportunity where he played better. Again, I don't recall who that team was against. I'm very intrigued by Pepe Williams with the versatility that he offers, being able to play in the slot, play some man-to-man, and he did get beat last year. I thought he got beat often when he was playing man in the slot or some of our read coverages. But then against the Bengals, when we were dropping to that Tampa 2, we utilized Pepe Williams as a half-field safety often, and I thought he looked good doing so. Thought he put himself in position to break on the ball and wasn't targeted that often as one of those half-field safeties. I'm very interested in him being on the field in some passing situations, along with Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, our corners, whoever our second corner ends up being, and whoever other safety ends up being. At this point on the roster, it would be either Chuck Clark or Geno Stone. I think the Pepe Williams pick at 141 is an excellent pick. I think there's a lot of talent there. Of course, there's a guy on the board that, damn near got Rookie of the Year for Seattle, so I understand that. Everybody passed on him, though, including Seattle. Tariq Woolen, in case you don't know who I'm talking about. So I was pleased with the round 4 talent that was selected last year. I'm sure a lot of you guys were too. There's a glaring hole there in that we didn't select a receiver. I'm not sure that the talent that was available there would have had a huge impact. I believe Romeo Doubs was picked in round 4. I think Austin, the guy who went on IR all year for the Steelers, was picked in round 4. So the Ravens had some opportunities to improve that group there. Certainly it is disappointing. I got no problem with people being frustrated with the Ravens front office for not picking a single wide receiver when they had all of these opportunities to do so. Having said that, I thought that the UDFAs last year were uniquely talented. I'm a huge fan of Mekhi Polk. Still a big fan of him and Shamar Bridges, and think those guys are going to find a way to stick on a roster in the NFL. But this round 4, even though it looked, I think, quite imposing and impressive on draft night, I cannot give it a really high grade after 1 year just because of the JAD health situation. Kolar, again, another health situation. Pepe, inconsistent usage. But I think a lot of that was due to Hamilton. Once Hamilton was settled in as the nickel safety / corner, we didn't really need Pepe. There was no spot for Pepe to be on the field. It'll be interesting to see how we utilize all those guys next year. Pepe Williams can play. Really love his game. For me, round 4, all these opportunities, 5 opportunities, I think, 6, Falele, JAD, Kolar, Stout, likely Pepe. 6, like it says, 6-pack. And for us to have 2 situations where guys didn't contribute pretty much at all, JAD, Kolar. A third situation, Falele, where he was at least there and I thought played solid for 1.5 games, really struggled the first half against the Patriots. And then likely to have a huge impact. For me, for round 4, it's tough with 6 opportunities there for me to give it anything that's higher than a B-. And even that, is a little bit generous for me. I'm being a little harsh here, but hey, it's a professional football organization. These guys supposedly have ways to evaluate talent that's superior than the way we look at it. Right? They have all the time in the world to do so, or at least all the paid time in the world to do so, whereas the rest of us drink coffee and stay up late and do it on our own time. And then, of course, in round 6, we drafted a guy who I will judge based on the talent, not based on what happened to him in this season. When I say what happened, that he wasn't utilized and then end up going to Denver and scoring a touchdown in one of the only 2 times he touched the ball, Tyler Badie. I think he's a talented guy. Seeing him play in the preseason and then seeing a little bit of film of him with the Broncos, I think he's a talented guy. I got no problem with this pick. I got no problem with the fact that the Ravens, quote, underutilized him, because I thought Kenyon Drake, Justice Hill, to be honest with you, just looked better. I mean, just flat out, those guys had moments for us this past season where they performed well. So for me personally, round 5 is an NA because we didn't have a round 5 pick. Round 6, I got no problem with somebody saying this is a B, a solid B pick, because that's a really talented dude who ran for 1,600 yards and I think 14 touchdowns in the SEC the year before, I think at Missouri, if I remember correct. And the Ravens were able to get him in round 6. And I think he's going to be a guy who's in the NFL for 6, 8, 10 years, depending on how healthy he stays and how he keeps his body, how well he keeps his body, ready to perform. So having said all that, how do you think the Ravens can parlay their drafting ability with the limited amount of picks that we have this year? We don't have a round 2 pick. We don't have that surplus of round 4 pick. And we've got 2, possibly 3 very significant needs. Now, I'm omitting Lamar Jackson from this. This video is being made as if either A, the Ravens are going to have Lamar Jackson in some capacity in terms of, whether they tag him, whether they sign him, whatever. Or B, the Ravens are going to make some kind of trade that I guess would make, a lot of this null and void. So we're going to focus on the 2 main team needs, wide receiver and corner. And then offensive guard, obviously, with the quite likely possibility that we lose Ben Powers. I'm going to mention some athletes at those two positions, and this is where I'm going to try to spin this video a little bit. We had so many opportunities in round 4 last year, we didn't address receiver. I would be okay if people getting frustrated and throwing their hands up in the air saying, "Well, coach, how do you think we're going to address it this year? We had all those attempts to do it last year." Well, they did come out and say they are going to, number one. Number two, they see the missed opportunities that we had at receiver. Again, I'm not a huge George Pickens guy. I recognize he's a real good player, but I don't think he's a savior like a lot of people do. I certainly don't think he's better than Christian Watson or any of the other guys that were drafted before the Ravens drafted at 14 last year. But Tillman from Tennessee, A.T. Perry from Wake Forest, Xavier Hutchinson. Those three guys, athletic, big. Where would we pick them? Would we pick them at 86? You might have to, because they might not be there at 124. You're certainly not going to pick those guys at 22, but 22 could be utilized at corner. So let's do the opposite. Let's say the Ravens go receiver at 22, whoever it is. Zay Flowers. Quentin Johnston's not going to be there. He's not going to be there at 22. Zay Flowers might not be either. It depends on team need. I'm not one of those people that gets stuck in, hey, this guy, in my opinion, is a second-round pick. If a team needs a player, they might draft him 10, 12, 14 slots earlier because they know he won't be there with the next pick. It's all about need. And the Ravens need receiver, and they need corner. They need both if they're going to let Marcus Peters go, which it looks like they are. So if they were to go receiver at 22, some guys that would be at 86 or maybe 124, but I don't really think so, is Eli Ricks won't be there at 86. But the long, big, athletic guys, which I think is what we missed on last year, I think, besides Hamilton at safety. Emmanuel Forbes, Julius Brents, he might be the Tariq Woolen of this year's draft in terms of his athletic ability, or RAS, relative athletic score, that everybody's going to talk about. How much confidence do you have in the Ravens to be able to address those two needs and the guard need with the limited amount of picks that we have? You can say what you want about the value of 5th round and 6th round picks. There's dudes who can play and do contribute every year that are drafted in the 5th and 6th round. Tariq Woolen, look at him. He's one of them. I have confidence in the Ravens front office. I believe that it's in their best interest to address one of those needs in free agency, if possible. Now, I understand there's going to be cuts, veteran cuts typically, later in the year, and maybe the Ravens have some kind of inkling about who some of those players will be. I think they really need to seriously look at drafting the biggest, most athletic receiver and corners that they can. Not saying that I'm not a fan of Zay Flowers or like a Josh Downs or a Tank Dell. Those guys are, if they're available and they're the best option, I would be fine with that. Jalen Hyatt will be a guy that I would look at too. You guys let me know what you think of the video. The video is basically my summation, judgment, eval, even though it's incomplete eval of the Ravens draft from last year on a round-by-round basis. I don't really do an overall draft analysis or eval because I think it's a little too soon to do that. Maybe it's too soon to do a round-by-round one. But the picks, I thought, in rounds 2 and 3, Ravens kind of opened themselves up. Good for them for having the confidence and the foundational approach to go with best player available. But they've really put themselves in a situation where this year they have to address the wide receiver corner needs with pick 22 and pick 86. Unless something changes and we trade back and we're able to recoup that second-round pick. You guys let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. What you think of my evals. I'm quite certain that people will have different evals than I do. I generally try to keep it to film-based and not stats-based. So my eval of Kyle Hamilton, being in that A- A range, is based on his play, based on his coverage ability, his tackling, his ability to set the edge. Whereas statistically, in terms of interceptions, fumbles recovered, forced fumbles, tackle for loss, all that shit, there might be people who say that I don't know what I'm talking about. Appreciate you guys' time. Let me know if you think you have any video ideas. The next thing I'll be coming up with, hopefully by the end of the week, is I'll be doing a draft rebuild suggestion type video for the Houston Texans. If you think other people might appreciate this video, please consider sharing a link to it out on social media to help the video get more reach.